Hi everyone, here is my reflect/response on the movie that we watched, The Paper Tigers. First off, I want to say I've never seen this movie and I cried the whole entire time. Not because, it was sad, but also because it's very inspirational, working with kids every day, especially kids in a low-income school. It's quite often that we do see some behavior issues stemming from at home or stemming from issues they've been through. So this touched kind of in my heart. It's kind of hits home. Obviously, we don't have the fights and the behaviors as bad as the school did, Lincoln Alternative, but it does hit home. Like I said, I cried the whole entire time. Happy tears, sad tears, all the above. But I think that's what makes a movie so memorable and so impacting, and I felt that this really impacted me as a teacher. I wrote some takeaways. So my two greatest takeaways were how important relationships are. From this movie, we see that academics were of importance, but it's not all it is. School is not all about academics, especially for kids at the Lincoln Alternative. It's so essential for kids to know that you care. Once you start building that relationship and they start trusting you, the academics will come, but you will not get anywhere with academics if you don't get anywhere with a relationship with students that are in an alternative school or students that may have behavior issues. It's super important to just realize that the person comes first, and that's kind of what this movie offered, is that the person comes first. Teaching kids how to build positive relationships, teaching kids self-worth, especially the girls in this movie. We see, a lot of the times they felt, they were doing things for men, or that men, whatever it may be, like when they had that fighting incident and how the men were all, videotaping them and watching them fight. You have to know your self-worth, know that they're enough, know that they could do things without men. It's so important just to be kind and to be real. I think students that have behavioral issues or, don't respect authority, they have a hard time getting along with you if you're trying to be that fake teacher to stand up at the board and be like, this is what we do and this is what we do. No, you saw them being real. You saw these teachers just talking from their heart, There was a couple times where, the teachers were swearing with the kids, but that's being real. We don't live in this perfect world where, like we said, everything's perfect. We just have to be real with our students. And I realize that I get, I have really good relationships with some of my kids for just being real and being honest about experiences that I've been through, situations that I've been through, that they can connect to. Like Brooke said in this video, I think it was Brooke, she was sexually assaulted or molested or whatever that may be. But she shared her story with her kids, and they became so much closer because now those kids know that you're not looking at them like anything less. That kind of brings me into point 2, is they are nothing less. Just because they have, some behavioral issues or some things that may not, sit well, it doesn't mean that they're any less. It doesn't mean that they don't deserve the unconditional love that everybody else does. A lot of these kids have a hard times, with parents at home and issues with parents. As a teacher in a school like that, it is so important. They're pretty much their parent figure. They come to school for most of the day. That's what they see. So it's so important to just show you care, because you never know, they may have a parent at home that doesn't care. So that's so important. That's one of my biggest takeaways. I also just said, don't give up on them. These are the kids that you shouldn't give up on. These are the kids that you should lastly give up on. I know it could be hard and I know it can be tough, and we saw that from the movie, but giving up on them is only gonna make them go the opposite way. If you work with them and you work and you work and you work, and even if they're annoyed at first, they're going to at one point realize that they care, that you are doing this because you care. Communication is huge, kind of falls in with, just getting them to trust. In the movie, they talked about the kid Aaron, how just making eye contact with him built such a big relationship. He had a hard time verbally talking, but just that eye contact is so important, and it takes kids such a long way. We also saw that type of communication through music. We saw the kids, they felt comfortable because they were communicating through music. That's their out. That's how they want to communicate. So that's also very important. And then I said my second biggest takeaway was just how to deal with students like this, and that, every student has a different way that they react. So in this case, most of these kids, if you yell at them, they're going to scream back at you. They're going to go, you tell F yourself. They're going to, the girl threw a chair at him. Things are going to happen. In this case, kids don't react off of yelling. Some kids do react off that tough love. They do react off of, if a teacher yells at me, I need to be doing better. Not for these kids. These kids simply just need love. And I think it was so impressive, the teacher, Gordon, how he kept telling his students, love you, man, because to them, they probably don't hear that. And that's extremely difficult on a kid in a high school level. He or she, they just want to be loved. And in this case, they weren't loved. And that may be the case why they're acting out and why they're doing these things. But this also ties into just knowing your student. And that's, my big takeaway. Just knowing your student. Knowing what they like, knowing what they enjoy. I said in here, it's just so important for students, for you to know, students' outlets. We saw in the movie, one of the girls played volleyball, one of the kids loved to skateboard, one of the kids loved to do music, one kid loved art, one kid loved to act. And by providing them with these outlets, they then have something to become proud of. This kid, the kid that was acting, he was in the play, and he went from nothing, wouldn't talk, wouldn't look, to standing up in front of an audience and putting on a play, and he was so proud of himself. If you give kids something to be proud of, that will often lead to motivation, which these kids just may need. But in the end, that love is just so important. It's so important to just love your students in an appropriate way and, tell them you're proud of them and tell them you appreciate them, because sometimes that's all they need to hear, especially students that, go through adverse childhood experiences most of the times at home. They don't get that love. They don't get that positive, proud of you. Keep doing the things you're doing. So that's super important. And then how could I connect my film to my work with understanding and addressing behaviors? I kind of touched on that already. It's just so important. Like I said, to connect, I could come in and I learn about my students every day. And every single day I sit here and I look at my students and I think if they get angry or if they get mad, because that could happen to any kid. It's just not a kid with a behavior issue. What could we talk about? I talk about, a lot of times I talk about things that, on a real basis of what happens with students. I have a couple girls that love to talk about their relationship. And I just use my experience to help them because it's real. It's me. I'm a person. They're a person. Just because I stand in front of them and teach them doesn't mean they're any less than I am. And I think that's super important to, right off the bat, when school begins in September, lay that out. I'm no better than you, and you're no better than me. We're just people. And for kids with behavior issues, that's going to be big for them to hear, because a lot of the time they have trouble with that authority because they think, just because they're a teacher, they think they're better than me. But I'm not. I'm a human, you're a human, things happen. So that's how I would connect it to my work and just everything else I stated prior. Thank you.